Thank you. So these are the words that Mark, the Gospel of Mark, has shared with us about the resurrection of Jesus. When the Sabbath was over, which would have been the Saturday for the Jewish community, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome brought spices so that they might go and anoint him. You may remember that Joseph of Arimathea, as Mark and others have indicated, who was a member of the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin was like the church council. And the Sanhedrin had 71 members, a huge group of people. Obviously, they couldn't ever have a tie vote. And so the Sanhedrin had met and had decided that Jesus needed to go. So we are told again by a number of gospel accounts that Joseph of Arimathea had not voted in favor of that. And I'll speak about that a little bit later. And so they went to anoint Jesus. And very early on the first day of the week, when the sun had risen, they went to the tomb. They had been saying to one another, "Who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance to the tomb?" When they looked up and they saw that the stone, which was very large, had already been rolled back. As they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. But he said to them, "Do not be alarmed. You are looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He has been raised. He is not here. Look, there is the place they laid him. But go tell the disciples and Peter." That's unique. He tell the disciples. Well, one would assume that Peter was there, but he wanted to point out specifically Peter, that he was going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him just as he told you. So they went out and fled from the tomb, for terror and fear and amazement had seized them, and they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. I've said this repeatedly. I am just astonished sometimes the way the writers of the gospel accounts have portrayed the disciples, including Mary Magdalene and the others. And a word of resurrection is an incredible word, and however it comes to you, a resurrection that happens in your own personal life of finding yourself healthy again, a resurrection that finds that your mind is working more clearly again, or that indeed there's been a reconciliation between you and maybe a family member or someone who's your neighbor. There's reconciliation and there's resurrection happening all the time. And one would think, whoa, this has happened. I got to tell somebody. Well, I read recently about a woman who went to Romania back in the early 2005, 2006. She went because she had been invited to go by her church to join others from a group of women in that community in their churches who were going to Romania to work with children. Now, any of you who have lived long enough and remember what happened to much of Europe after the Second World War, it became engaged in decision-making about how to become a nation again. Poland and Yugoslavia and Bosnia and all of the nations, Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia. They were all making some decisions, and then boom, like that, they become part of the Iron Curtain with Russian influence. It's been it was a tragic time for them. And then they were being led by a dictator by the name of Ceausescu, and he was absolutely brutal. Then there was an uprising when the Soviet Union began to collapse, and there was a desire to become free again. That civil war in Romania was incredibly devastating. Buildings were destroyed, obviously. The economy was damaged, what there was of it. People died, children were suffering. Many children were then placed into orphanages. And during the revolution, the persons who were providing care for the children often hid themselves, leaving these small children to their own fear and anxiety. And so responding was an important thing to do, but this woman said, I had children of my own and I wanted to take care of them, and I wasn't sure this was a good idea, and I wasn't sure it would make a lot of sense for me to go even for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. But I'll go if somebody backs out, she said. Oh my, someone backed out. And they called her 2 weeks before the trip was to take place, and she said, okay, I'll go. She said, I remember my anxiety and my concern about whether we would be safe and whether this would work, but we went. And we landed in Romania, and the very first morning, we were walking on Easter morning of all mornings. And we're walking toward a church where we're going to go, where the church is providing training and assistance and has offered assistance to the children who had been in such grief and sorrow. She said, all along the way, we saw devastation. The war had been tragic for the people. There was damage to all the buildings. The sidewalks were all broken up. The streets were potted with holes. There were holes in buildings. There was garbage storing all over every corner. And yet, everybody we met on Easter Sunday morning were saying to me, he is risen. Praise God, he is risen. And she said, I thought to myself, how can you say that in this horrible condition? How can you say that? Children who are suffering, and any of you who have known people who adopted children from Romania, so many of them were really troubled and struggling to figure out who they were. She said, I was astonished. We got to the church, and the priests and the ministers who were there and the lay people who were there all came to us and hugged us and said, he is risen. It was as if there had been an incredible, joyful event in their life of freedom, of new freedom. She said, we don't think about that in the United States or many other places where we're so used to freedom. And particularly on Easter Sunday morning, who do we say that to as we go to the grocery store, stop to get gasoline or donuts for our breakfast, or whatever we do? Who says to the folks, Happy Easter, he is risen? And offering to them the invitation to come and join us as we not only celebrate the presence of a wonderful spirit within our lives and a whole new life of understanding how to live creatively, not so that we can boast about it and brag about it and force it upon others, but to offer it on the basis of our joy and our reception and our encouragement of the stranger and of the person who's different than us. And why not? And she said, I found myself finding just such enormous joy within myself. She said, I began to wonder, what if Easter was no more than just a word? What if he is risen is no more just a word that we hear on Easter Sunday morning? What if indeed Easter really could be lived in a way that people everywhere would be able to respond kindly and gently and compassionately to everyone? She wondered why it is necessary for us to decide that somebody else is wrong, and therefore they have to change. Why do we do that to ourselves when indeed the way to show love is to accept all people? It was John who said, God so loved the world. And get this, he didn't say in that gospel account, God loved just those who followed Jesus. God loved the whole world. Some of the world we don't like, some of the people in that world that we don't like, some of the people in our own nation we don't like, some of the folks we engage in conversation with that we end up arguing. And then we walk away instead of becoming friends and instead of recognizing that we are part of everybody and they are all part of the family of humanity. What if we could offer joy and friendship and peace and wholeness of life as we met one another, wherever we were? What if? Now, I suspect today you've heard, He is risen, the Lord is risen, Jesus Christ, the Lord is risen, God has caused Him to rise. I would venture you have heard that word today at least 50 or more times. It is a useless word if we don't live the faith that comes from believing that one cared enough for us to die. One cared enough for us to give us birth, be it parents or grandparents. One who loved us so much that we received us just as we are. Yeah, I've often said it'd be nice if babies would be born with a little pocket in it with a manual that would tell us how to raise the child. I'm now glad we don't. Because we get to discover who the child, each one of them is unique and precious and delightful, a gift to us, and a gift to the world, by the way. True of our children, true of our grandchildren, true of our great-grandchildren, and as my Native American friends say, and for 7 generations more, each generation, 7 generations, offers something special by protecting the world in which they live and giving them the gift of their children. What if? What if it was more than just simply hearing the word, but we gave the word life, and we gave the word resurrection life in our own lives by the way we talk to one another, by the way we relate to our neighbors and to those who are in other positions of life, the way we treat the young or the old or the sick or the well or the wealthy or the poor, the gay and the straight, the way we treat the African American and the Asian and our own white background. We are all one holy family, regardless of who we are and where we live. If we're not, then we got to scratch out a lot of things in the New Testament as well as in the Old Testament. Love your neighbor as yourself. Now, I know folks sometimes don't love themselves very much, and so the neighbor needs to show the kind of love that will help them understand that they are valued and precious, and they are not a cipher, a zero, a nothing, a reject, but indeed a precious human being. We celebrate Christmas, the birth of Jesus. We celebrate in many ways his willingness to die on the cross. And we celebrate Easter because of the faith of the church over the years of resurrection. Celebrate resurrection within each person, your life, their life, the life of every individual across the globe. We will be a healthier, whole, more joyous, more complete person as we do those kinds of things for one another. We give because we care. We love because we know that there are the unloved in the world. We smile because indeed that smile offers hope and sunshine to another person. Go in peace. By all means, go out into the community where it really counts. Not that we come here and worship, we're worshiping with one another, but it counts out there, that we love one another out there. That's what Jesus' resurrection means to me, and what it meant to this woman as she went indeed with her dance of life as she shared it with those children who were struggling, giving them hope, being their hope. Amen. Now, I want to say again that our communion service is always open to everyone. So